I'll also start the live stream. Okay, we already have a good group with us. So just so everyone knows, I'm getting our live stream ready. It should be going right now. Ryan, how about you offer folks our trivia question while they join us?
I'm going to drop it in the chat too. So our trivia is I spent part of the morning in a traffic jam because of I-80. There's a big accident, semi-jackknife, all that fun stuff. Anyway, Iowa trivia, what are the first two cities in Iowa connected by a paved road? And bonus for if you know the date. So
that's a good one. That's a really good trivia question. I'm not going to guess because I just embarrass myself every time. So I'm going to refrain from guessing.
I wouldn't have thought of those two cities either. So it's cool. So people decide they want to get their Google engine running. Go for it.
Okay, David Lance says Ames and
That's
Boone.
a good guess for
Yes.
today. So hats off to him.
Ray Ward is saying guess anyways, even though I will embarrass myself. My first instinct would be like Des Moines and in somewhere. Oh, Ray Ward says Iowa City to Cedar Rapids. Okay. Interesting stuff. The guesses are coming. Iowa City and Cedar Rapids. Glenn Pollock says that.
They're not major. They're not small cities, but they are not what we would consider modern big cities. So
yeah. Okay.
I mean, they're not small. But so anyway, we can.
Okay. Well, so just so everyone knows, I am recording and this is live streaming on IFU's Facebook page right now. So you can go there immediately when we're done and share the wonderful conversation we're about to have with Sarah with all of your friends. We love it when you distribute it. I am going to remind you all of an event happening September 25th through 26th at Drake University in Des Moines. So this is the Industrial Farm Animal Production, the Environment and Public Health Conference. So we've talked about this before, and I am going to put a link in the chat where you can register and get 50% off your registration for those 2 days. So do that. I think it's going to be a wonderful event. If you want to learn more about it, you can scroll back through our Lunch and Learns and look at the Lunch and Learn we did about it. So there is the link. I am going to hand it over now to Ryan Marquardt, our Vice President of the Iowa Farmers Union, who is filling in today as our host since Aaron is away. So Ryan, I'll hand it to you.
I appreciate that. And back to that trivia question real quick, what were the first two cities in Iowa connected by a paved road? And that would be Mason City and Clear Lake in 1918, which never would have thought of that. Super random. So paved, had to be paved. So anyway, I'm Ryan Marquardt. I'm Vice President of Iowa Farmers Union, and I am joined today by Sarah Green, who's the Executive Director of the Iowa Environmental Council. We're going to talk about some water quality issues today, and I don't have like a long spiel or anything to hand it off to you. So I'm going to let you get started and we'll circle back for some questions at the end, and we'll enjoy delving into the issues that face us here.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Let me first share my screen. All right. I'll just kick it off with a brief introduction of myself. My name is Sarah Green. I am the Executive Director for Iowa Environmental Council. I've been with IEC since the end of April, so I still consider myself new, still consider myself learning, and I think I'll still be learning for many years to come with IEC. I'm native to West Des Moines. I got my undergrad degree in Leisure, Youth, and Human Services from the University of Northern Iowa. Got my master's degree in my Master's of Public Administration from Drake University. And I've taken a bit of a career pivot. I was largely engaged with more of the health and human services sector, previously coming from Lutheran Services in Iowa, where I managed fundraising, marketing, and then the immigrant and refugee community services, specifically for refugee resettlement programming for the state of Iowa. So I took a pivot over to IEC just from a personal passion of where do I want to make an impact in the world? Where can I utilize my skills of nonprofit management and lifting up important initiatives statewide? And so IEC fit the bill. So a little bit about IEC. Can change my slide. Iowa Environmental Council was founded in 1995 by a group of business leaders in the Des Moines community, primarily founded to address water quality issues for the state. The council adopted the Clean Energy Program Initiative in 2005, and those two programs were the kind of the two heads of IEC until this last year, where IEC added one more program that is growing by the day, which is a climate initiatives and environmental justice program, primarily funded through the EPA. So IEC is a statewide nonprofit organization. We're the largest environmental coalition in the state, 30 years next year. We've got about 100 member organizations and over 1,000 individuals that are individual members of our organization. So our values, our greatest strength is our relationships. Our work is informed by science, data, and stories, influenced by human connection, but backed by science and data. We are a trusted voice, respected for our integrity and resourcefulness across the state. It's important to note that sometimes we educate and lead, but other times it's very important for us to learn and follow. And we make sure that we have a fine balance of both of those strategies. We are inclusive, nonpartisan, and we listen to others. And our mission is a just, healthy environment and a sustainable future for all Iowans. Our vision for Iowa's future is a healthy climate and habitat, a diverse use of land, a variety of economic drivers and opportunities for all Iowans, equitable access to land, outdoor recreation, environmental education, equitable access to affordable, reliable, and clean sources of energy and drinking water, the promise of a livable future for current and future generations, and an engaged public with equitable access to the democratic process. Our vision is led by a board of 15. We have 10 board members that are member organizations, 5 that are just general at-large board members, and then we currently have a staff of 13 individuals. 11 are based out of Des Moines. We've got 1 in Sioux City that's focusing on our Clean Up Mid-American campaign, that's a campaign organizer, and 1 in Iowa City that's focusing on our environmental justice work and our water quality work as well. I'm thrilled to share that we will be hiring 3 additional positions, 1 for energy, filling our water program director position, and an additional position for our environmental justice team as well. So our team will grow to 16 or 17 individuals by the end of this year. As I mentioned, we've got a multi-pronged strategy for enacting out our mission. So the first is partnerships and outreach. That's like with Iowa Farmers Union and all of our other member organizations. We believe that we need to leverage collective influence and amplify the voices of all Iowans, organizations, and individuals. Through our collective voice, we try to influence policy. And then we also are heavily involved, probably more than most people realize, with rulemaking in the courts. Most recently, there was a final hearing and decision from the Alliant rate case energy. That's more on energy, not water, which is what I'm talking about today. But that was just came out this week. And then we've also got a staff attorney that's working on responses to DNR comments that just came out as well. And so while it feels like progress is slow and reviewing policies and different regulations is slow, there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes, and IEC is involved and a lot that the general public isn't aware of. So I'm here to talk about water today. I just wanted to start with a little bit of the history. I'm going to talk about more of a high-level water strategy from IEC, just because I don't know the makeup of the group that are attending the webinar today. But if you do have any more in the weeds technical questions, I'm happy to get back to you and answer any questions. So just a little bit of an overview, how Iowa the landscape has transformed. As you can see, from the 1830s to 1850s, the map has drastically changed from where we're at to just 2009 even. Heavily reduced our amount of prairie and woodlands and brush. I think it's important to note that IEC's stance is not bringing back prairies and woodlands. It's how do we make sure that we have a stable economy, that we're supporting our agriculture, but we're also protecting our environment. It's not an either or, it's a yes and situation. IEC, many of our staff have families that have come from farms. I personally have a century family farm in Manila, Iowa, that's in my background. And so it's talking about how do we have a symbiotic relationship between the two. Another piece or map that I think is important is looking at the concentrated animal feeding operations across the state. There's a direct correlation between the amount of the regulations of these CAFOs and water quality for all Iowans. So our water quality problem, IEC believes that there's pollution from agricultural production. We believe it's not the small family farms or small mid-sized family farms. It's largely produced from the industrial agriculture and the lack of regulation. So fertilizer and manure causes nutrients of nitrogen and phosphorus, bacteria to grow, which you might see in IEC's weekly water watch that goes into different beach advisories. So there's E. coli and other pathogens, sediments, and pesticides. And then we're seeing emerging contaminants such as PFAS. We also believe there's an imbalance of public rights in agricultural production. So there's an imbalance between who creates the pollution and then who pays for the consequences and cleans up. There's quite a few farmers, quite a few from IFU, that are following safe farming practices and standards. It's those larger farms that, or larger groups that might be contributing to these pollutions, but aren't, covering the consequences or the cleanup for these issues. And as a result, public beaches are choked with algae, fueled by fertilizer pollution. Water systems scramble to deliver drinking water that meets federal standards. Ratepayers pick up the cost of pollution dumped into public waterways upstream. And then industrialized agriculture is carbon intensive and is linked to climate change. So what does that mean for Iowa? There's health problems. That's come to fruition and been in the news more recently. Health problems for Iowans due to nitrates in drinking water. There's harmful algae blooms that those that are in water can be impacted by. Bacteria and pathogens can cause gastrointestinal illness and infections. It's linked to direct medical expenses in Iowa from increased cancer incidents. So cancer, the costs have grown from $6 million to $37 million. We also want to note that there's economic losses of lake recreation and tourism at play too. So there's health problems, and then there's financial costs to the state as well. I did want to note, throughout my presentation, I'll share a few reports that IEC has published that are available on our website. I'll follow up with an email where all of these are linked. But one of the really great reports is a nitrate and drinking water report that was updated in May 2024. It compiles peer-reviewed research of the health impacts on nitrate across the state. Again, that's published on our website. Wanted to touch a little bit on AFO rulemaking. So the Environmental Protection Commission adopts rules that the DNR implements. So the process is a proposal by the agency. Agency puts out public notice, comment, and hearing, and then it is adopted. And IEC has been involved in every level or every step of the public notice, comments, and then in hearing when appropriate. And then the Administrative Procedure Act allows anyone to petition for new rules, which IEC has done as part of our water strategy. Two, I think, important petitions to note is in August 2021, IEC and ELPC, based out of Des Moines, that's Steve Falk and Josh Mandelbaum, petitioned for increased vertical separation of karst landforms from 5 feet to 25 feet, prohibit construction with less than 5 feet separation from karst, and to protect the drinking water via monitoring and considering unique conditions and cumulative impact. And then in May of 2022, petition to adopt a 20-year floodplain map. The August 2021 was denied. August 2022 or May 2022 was adopted. Again, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but I think it's important to note that IEC has been heavily involved behind the scenes with all of these rulemakings. So we filed a petition in 2001, 2002, submitted informal comments later on in 2022, again in 2023, informal comments later in 2023, and then when EPC formally adopted their rules after our 4th round of formal comments in February of 2024, they formally adopted their rules April 16th, 2024, and that's where IEC filed a petition to the EPA, which I'll talk about in a little bit. As I mentioned, there's a few publications that you can dig into CAFOs a little bit more. That's on IEC's website, Animal Feeding Operations in Iowa's Floodplain, and the Cost of CAFOs as well. Those have been partnership publications with a few other organizations. So as I mentioned, the petition to the EPA, this was in a response to the policy that was approved on April 16th. The EPA retains emergency powers to abate present or likely contamination of a public water system or underground source of drinking water if it receives information that the contamination may present an imminent and substantial endangerment to the health of persons, and appropriate and local authorities have not acted to protect the health of all such persons. So this is similar to a case, you'll see there's previous nitrate petitions that had gone through to the EPA. IEC had kind of mimicked the Minnesota petition. So in 2023, Minnesota petitioned the same karst region, that's southern Minnesota, to northeastern Iowa. They petitioned in April of 2023. They got a response from the EPA in November of 2023, so nearly 9 months later. So they did find that there was an evident need for further actions to safeguard public health, and they responded that they expected Minnesota to hold sources of nitrate accountable using all available tools to reduce the amount of nitrate they release to groundwater. So IEC led the petition. You'll see this list of individuals that joined IEC. We filed April 16th. What we asked EPA to do was, at minimum, what the EPA required Minnesota to do. I won't, again, get through all the weeds of all of these, but to create a communication plan, implement a plan to sample drinking water for all residents that request it, provide alternate sources of drinking water to impact residences, maintain and publish records on the scope and severity of the contamination. And then we also had an addition of requests. Just to be completely transparent, if we're looking at the same timeline of what Minnesota had the response, it was November of 2023 following their April petition. We're expected to get a response by November of this year. We haven't heard anything quite yet. Looking at, there's an election coming up. I'm not confident that the EPA will respond to our petition in time. They're not obligated to respond, but there are some actions that we can take for next steps to push the EPA to respond. If they do respond, great. We're eager to hear what the outcome is. And then IEC has some plans for next steps to protect even more pockets of drinking water in the state. So I've talked a lot about the problems and where the issues are, but want to touch a little bit on potential paths for progress as well. So how do we rebalance the interests of the public and agriculture production to improve and protect water quality? The current tactic is voluntary change, so education, incentives, and market forces. That's also through Iowa's nutrient reduction strategy that was published in 2013. It was adopted as an official state policy in 2018. It is entirely voluntary for the biggest sources of pollution. We believe that there is a lack of progress with the nutrient reduction strategy because it relies on voluntary adoption. There's no target date, no timeline or milestones, no specific strategy, but just a series of scenarios that are at play. So voluntary is not working. You'll see the goal of the NRS was a 45% reduction in total nitrogen load, but the reality is that there's no actual water quality data that shows any improvement since this policy had been in place in 2018. So what IEC's done and what's next, we held a webinar on May 1st. That recording is still available on our website, all about our Northeast Iowa petition. We held presentations in Northeast Iowa in June, specifically in the communities that are impacted by this petition in the Karst region. We continue to post on social media to gain public awareness and education. We will be framing our legislative priorities based on our anticipated EPA response, but the response will likely come after the election, and then we'll have to take further action if the EPA fails to respond. Potential paths for progress, again, other options outside of just voluntary work is legislative directives, agency administrative implementation. So IEC, as we kind of look at what's our water strategy moving forward, is updates to the nutrient reduction strategy, improved water monitoring, universal conservation practices as basic standards of care, numeric nutrient criteria, strengthen AFO regulations, and then the petition to EPA for emergency action. As far as the nutrient reduction strategy, our recommendations there, and we've got this document is also live on our website, but to adopt more timelines for progress, to make this a reality for individuals, that if we don't meet the targets, what are the identified consequences that are at stake in our communities and our families? Conduct a 10-year review to prioritize practices, identify practices to adopt universally, implemented a targeted watershed demonstration project, develop a monitoring approach for targeted watersheds, and to adopt numeric criteria. I'll skip through these just for time. IEC's goal is not just to poke holes in systems or point out issues. The goal is to identify issues, identify the science behind them, and collect data, but then also to propose solutions and bring individuals together at the table. So farmers, big ag, environmental groups like IEC, legislators, how do we all come together to solve a problem? And a few basic standards of care that we believe would make an impact to adopt universally is universal riparian buffers, limits to fall fertilizer applications, as a few other states, Maryland, Nebraska, Wisconsin, already do, that has improved water quality, and then watershed management action plans. Before I pass it over for questions, I do want to invite each of the attendees today. Next week, we are partnering, as Christina had mentioned, there's a event with the Harkin Institute at Drake. We're hosting the first Iowa Environmental Education Week, and as part of that, one of the events is an annual conference for IEC. It typically will cost $100 for attendees, but if you register on our website and put in the code FREE, we tried to make it an easy code there, you're welcome to attend for free. The keynote address will be Dr. Benjamin Pauley, who led the response to the Flint, Michigan water crisis. So we've got over 50 panelists, 17 different sessions focusing on environmental justice, legal solutions to change, and a Healthy Iowa, Healthy Environment track as well. I'd encourage you to join IEC's list and follow us on social media. We're on almost every single platform. We share a lot of a variety of information on each of our platforms, but encourage you to get plugged in there. And then also just wanted to share my personal email address and then our website in case any of you would like to reach out personally for additional questions or ways to get involved with Iowa Environmental Council. All right, Ryan, I think I've probably talked long enough. I'll
You're
pass it back
good.
to you.
All right, Sarah. If you have any questions in your feel free to drop those in the chat. We'll try to get to them. Otherwise, we got a couple that came in ahead of time, so we'll try to work through those.
Great.
So I had people wondering about the major arterial rivers on our borders, the Mississippi and the Missouri. What's the monitoring situation look like for them?
Yeah, so the DNR has lots of water systems that are for flowing into the Mississippi River, but not much on the Mississippi River itself. DNR has monitored the Mississippi River in the past. Some of it's impaired for bacteria. DNR has an ambient stream monitoring program system, which takes monthly samples, but it does not include the Mississippi River, and I can drop the website of where that is too. DNR also has a AQUIA map that does not have any monitoring on the Mississippi River. And then finally, the U.S. Geological Survey used to sample on the Mississippi River in Clinton, Iowa for nitrate, among other things, but does not have any current monitoring.
Gotcha. So, I mean, that's interesting. So we live in a pretty noisy world with a lot of other things going on. How do we kind of force farmers and our corporate ag interests to basically give a damn about the situation?
The number one thing I would say is talk to your neighbors about your concerns. Water quality is something that impacts everyone. And I just don't think people are aware of it and are aware of the impact within their own families, within their own communities, within our economy. Prior to me coming to IEC, I knew about the issues with our water quality, but didn't quite know the widespread impacts. And so number one, it's talk to your neighbors about your concerns. And then I'd also encourage you to share resources like IEC's nitrate health paper. Share those broadly within your circles. Take a chance to read it yourself and educate yourself on that and get involved. Just stay up to date with IEC and plug in when you can.
Awesome. We know about the dead zone, and we know the primary causes for the dead zone and a lot of where the non-point source pollution is coming from in general. How do you give us hope that there may be improvement in this in this situation?
So I was consistently one of the top contributors. IEC was actually a plaintiff in a lawsuit with the partner groups just shy of 10 years ago, trying to force action by the EPA to address the dead zone, but we did lose the case. And we did try to force EPA to develop a pollution diet for the Mississippi River or for states to adopt numeric standards for nutrients. EPA did refuse to do so. The underlying cause, though, is that economic incentives through the federal farm bill encourage row crops to be grown unsustainably. So states have the power to set their basic standards of care, but Iowa has not yet done so. So we're hoping that Iowa will. We're still pushing for that. But because of that, we end up with a leaky agriculture system. So lots of land without vegetation for months at a time. And then we have corn and soybeans without cover crops, lots of fertilizer that's applied in excess of what crops need, and then lots of tile drains that are sending water downstream. So I don't mean to respond with too bleak of a response, but I'm saying that, with Iowa, that takes a little bit more power and care and consideration that there could be positive changes made. It's just we need to generate a louder collective voice together to make that change happen and make it a priority.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for being here today. Do you have any words of wisdom for those who are listening that want to engage with the Iowa Environmental Council?
Yeah, Encourage all of you to get involved with IEC through a multitude of ways. One of the best ways would be to join IEC as an individual member, or if you're representing a specific member organization, to join as a member org. There's a lot of different ways to do so, but you can attend things like our conference, share our reports, and engage with us on social media. So I'll drop some links as well in with IEC with what makes sense for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us, and thank all of you for being here today. Iowa Farmers Union is, we do this weekly, and we survive on the support of our members. So if you aren't a member of Iowa Farmers Union and you want to be one, so please look us up. We would love to continue to offer these programs in the future and continue to advocate for strong family farms in Iowa. Thank you much for joining us today. Christina, do you have anything else to take us away with?
Nope, I think that's everything. Wonderful
Awesome.
discussion.
Good luck today, and hopefully you catch one of these sporadic rainstorms. So take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.